Welcome to Scott. Oh, God.
5 seconds. Shed driving. Looking up. 1 second to go for the win. He got it. The Cougars win it. Number one remains number one. Cougars reset. Jackson again. Finds it. And the Houston Cougars go from the first floor out to the Sweet 16.
Stick it in your pipe and smoke it, baby.
Yes! Welcome to the Scott Holm Podcast. Back here, almost 1 month to the commencement of the college football season. The dog days of summer are almost behind us, guys. We're getting to that home stretch of, I think it's actually been a fairly quick moving offseason as off seasons go around these parts. Our summer news cup runneth over so much that we have, in addition to introducing one of our favorite annual things here, the Pawscars, we will be here talking about some current Cougar news and introducing the nominees for all the various categories we have for this year. I believe, Dustin, the 7th annual Pawscars. Am I remembering that correctly? A better prepared co-host, I guess, would have put in his notes, but glad I nailed that from your nodding. How are you doing, bud?
Doing well. Excited to be, counting down. We're finally at the point in the off season where you start counting down back from, okay, well, this week is going to be the UNLV preview episode, which means this week is going to be, Big 12, and then counting back and starting in another couple weeks here, we'll be starting season 10. So excited to be talking to you guys and excited to be announcing some Pawscar nominees, something we have a little bit of fun with every summer.
Bobby, how you doing, friend?
Good. Got back from Oklahoma, went to the casino, celebrate Mom's birthday. That's what she wanted to do. So we went to the whole resort and got a cabana by the pool. Weather was perfect. It was like 85. Water was freezing at the pool, but you could go put your legs in, kind of felt nice. Didn't win anything, but glad to be home talking Cougar sports, but had to give the shout out to Mom for her birthday. It will be sometime later this week, so I won't give out her age or her actual birthday, but it will be happening before the next episode, and I know she at least listens to most of the intros on accident. So she subscribes
by far
to help
eclipsing both of our moms.
Yeah, she has the sub, and I think it just pops on randomly in her car. She's like, "Why am I listening to these idiots?" So
shout out to your mom for that, and I guess putting up with you for all these years as well. Really quick aside, I don't want to get us too off this track, but I had to explain. I think you have both heard this anecdote from me, but in the last year or so, because of, believe it or not, it's somehow intersected with my work, I had to explain to my two bosses, who are both mostly born and raised here in Las Vegas, that the first exit, if you're going from Texas into Oklahoma on the main interstate, which in this case, Interstate 35, that the first exit is not like the welcome center or a park or anything like that. It is a number of Oklahoma casinos that mostly cater to Texas people coming across the board, which they could relate to it as people who are from here, big gambling mecca of the world, but still found it very funny.
Just an aside, again, we're getting sidetracked here. The first exit is a gas station with a casino attached, but also a dispensary because Oklahoma is legal for medicinal.
That's right.
So interesting.
There we go. Again, before I get us any further in the ditch here, gonna mention, of course, our Patreon, patreon.com/SHPAWcast. If you like what we do, if you have a little bit of disposable income to kick our way for doing a weekly Houston Cougar podcast, even here in the deep, dark heart of the offseason, consider giving us as little as $5 a month over at patreon.com/SHPodcast. It's 16 cents a day to support the work that Dustin, Bobby, and myself do over there. Please also support our network friends at the 1012 Network, at TEN12 Network, wherever you do your social mediaing. The 1012 Podcast, a number of great sister Big 12 podcasts. Of course, got to mention our good friends are now multi-year sponsors. Now that we are just past the 12-month mark on that, Charlie Hustle on the World Wide Web at charliehustle.com. If you do not know them, know now they're the makers of incredibly comfortable vintage collegiate wearables, some professional team wearables as well, but likely, if you're listening to this, your interest is with the Houston Cougars, and good news for you as well. Charlie Hustle has a fantastic Houston Cougar selection: t-shirts, crew necks, hoodies, all kinds of wearables, classic Cougar throwback designs, as well as designs you can find nowhere else. So please, please, please support Charlie Hustle. Use our promo code PAWD15. That's PAWD15. That's going to save you 15% on any order of fantastic Charlie Hustle wearables. Guys, it's the most wonderful time of the year. It's not December. It's not the time for Hallmark movies. It's time for the Pawscars. How about we introduce some categories? Pawscar.
Yes,
well, introduce the Pawscars by introducing the nominees. We are not going to be tonight giving away our votes. We're going to give you, you the fans have your vote in this as well. We will give you time to vote. Not going to tip our hands as well, but we're going to at least introduce that on our penultimate episode of our 9th season here of doing a podcast.
I think our goal here is to attempt to sell every candidate in every category to you.
Yes,
It's difficult.
At least that's how I did my notes. If I'm supposed to be selling a certain candidate, I will. I can do that because I know who I'm choosing for all these.
So, so wherever you're listening to this, I'm sure Sam will put it the link to vote for all but one of the categories in the show description, and then play of the year, which will have the actual clips you can find on Twitter, which I'm sure will be under this episode as well. Also, if you scroll to the bottom of the ballot, it'll have a link to vote on her as well. So definitely make sure, every year we've done this, we've given the fans a vote. So definitely make sure to go fill out your ballot and be part of Pawscar's history. First year, we're going to 4 full votes. 3 hosts.
I'm having anxiety about these potential ties here.
These two ties. We're eliminating the 3-way ties, but we're going to introduce some 2-way ties. So I think it'll be an even switch. But excited, guys. Should we go ahead and get started with the first category of nominees here?
Let's do it, buddy.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, Sam. I think this is you, bud.
Yeah, so we're going to lead off here with Male Athlete of the Year. It almost, prefacing this, it almost felt difficult to cut this down to like 6 or have it 6. I think you could probably even make a case for a couple of guys that aren't going to be on here, but I don't think anyone will take issue with the 6 that we have here. Jamal Shed from the men's basketball program. I don't know what else I can say about Jamal Shed. I haven't already, but Big 12 Player of the Year and Defensive Player of the Year, the heart and soul of the Big 12 championship winning Cougar men's basketball squad. Louis Hinchcliffe from Cougar Track and Field, 100-meter dash national champion, Olympian guy who accomplished an incredible amount in his first year as a Houston Cougar. His teammate with the Cougar Track and Field program, Sean Maswanyani, 3-time Big 12 champion, and a man whose accomplishments I could probably spend a full podcast fully recapping from his time with the Cougar Track and Field program. Santiago de la Fuente, a big part of a strong first season for the Cougar men's golf program in the Big 12, as well as a Masters. And Bobby, correct me if I'm wrong here. I'm going to look my notes here. Is Open Championship? What was the other major he qualified for?
U.S.
Besides
Open.
the Masters, U.S. Open. Excuse me, Masters and U.S. Open qualifier as well. Jaywan Roberts from the Cougar men's basketball program, incredibly big part of the Cougars championship winning first season in the low post, and Kerry Arboleda from the Cougar baseball program, who had a monster year at the plate after being kind of really a part-time bit player. His first season of the program has a monster second season as well, leads the Cougars in most of the major offensive categories, and just has an all-around fantastic 2024 season. Guys, what do we think about those nominees?
Yeah, some strong nominees. I think there's a few, there's a few guys on there that you go, oh man, well, it's got to be him, right? But then you see there's kind of multiple guys that fit that description, and really a bunch of, all 6 of them with extremely strong candidacies here. So I think going to be a category where a lot of different people get a lot of different votes, even if, not to tip anyone's hand, but I think maybe 1 or 2 will dominate the fan vote at the very least. But I think a lot of 6 strong candidates that I think really deserve your consideration.
Yeah, it was the male athlete of the year was a very tough one to even come up with the candidates without it being 15 people long. It seems this really feels like the year, like I think it was Forrest Gump won the Oscar for Best Picture, and it won, and it beat out Pulp Fiction, Quiz Show, Shawshank, 4 Weddings and a Funeral. Like, just what a lineup! And then anybody who wins is definitely going to deserve it if they for what they've done for Cougar sports in the past year.
Yeah, won't tip my hand at all who I'm voting for. I will just say I have written and deleted notes about who I'm going to pick for this. It has been a thinker, to be sure.
Absolutely.
All right, Bobby, go.
Yep. So we are going to give you the nominees for Best Actor. Best female athlete. I'm sorry.
Best actress.
The Oscars fever is just coming over you. I understand.
I don't know what happened. I got caught up in the moment, guys. My apologies. So we're gonna start with volleyball, and we are going to nominate Kenna Sauer. Kenna Sauer transferred in from Texas Tech this year. We're super excited for preseason to see what she was going to bring. I know all three of us were really excited for what she was going to bring to the program, and she exceeded even those very lofty expectations. 377 kills on the season, which actually led the team, and was named to the All-American third team, becoming only the third Cougar volleyball player to do so. So some nice accolades there. Next up, we have Moa Savinicold, lowest scoring average on a very good women's golf team, Cougar women's golf team. And if you look at the awards, Moa was named to the Big 12 All-Tournament team, which is really big. First year in the Big 12 to have somebody named to your All-Tournament team, as well as the All Big 12 Conference team. So big stuff there for Moa. Then you have Cindy Townsend from track and field, finished top 5 in the nation at NCAA finals, multiple meet wins throughout the year, and a second-team All-American. Next up, we have Kellyanne Beckford, also from track and field, indoor Big 12 champion in the 800, part of the 4x400 team that finished top 5 in the country at NCAA Outdoors. And then finally, we have Tariah Coleman, just an all-around beast for the softball team, batted .374, 8 home runs, an OPS of 1058, slugged .594, 7 for 10 in stolen bases. So any thoughts on who you guys are leaning towards, or on the candidates as a whole?
So really great. I was gonna say great year for. That's my first thought. Great year for women's track and field to have two nominees. Like I know. We've talked about year. It was almost a year-on-year trope to us. I was like, all right, is this the year that Cougar women's track and field is going to have some like high-level scoring points in the finals kinds of athletes? And yeah, we have a couple here. I think speaks to the incredible year that program had. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say don't want to give away who. Not going to say who I'm leaning towards voting for here, but I really think another strong field of candidates, even on some less strong team. Tariah Coleman had a fantastic season. Like I said, multiple very deserving candidates in track and field. Moa for the golf team with an incredible season, still as an underclassman, excited about her. And then Kenna Sauer, just what an impact transfer coming in and having the big year, coming into a Texas Tech, or not to a Texas, from a Texas Tech to a Cougar volleyball program that was already very good, had a lot of very good players, and then kind of become maybe the best player on that team is an incredible accomplishment. And it was a lot of fun watching her in her 1 year in the Scarlet and Albino.
Yeah, can't think of a whole lot more impactful like 1 year careers that we've seen from this program than Kenna Sauer. And yeah, Tariah Coleman. I remember when Tariah Coleman joined before the 2023 season, it was like, okay, I think she could be a big 12 caliber player. And I think we got that answered with absolutely no doubt from her last season against Big 12 competition.
All right, our third category is going to be Game of the Year, and this is the team category. There will also have an individual category coming up next, but in terms of Team Game of the Year, we've got 6 candidates here. The first is going to be men's basketball defeating Kansas to finish out the regular season, a 30-point emphatic victory for the Cougar men's program. Had already kind of clinched the Big 12 title at that point, but just a big party atmosphere dominating the Jayhawks to make it a 2-game margin by which they won the Big 12 in their initial inaugural year in the conference. Second game of the year, we have football versus West Virginia, just a dramatic game that, as you of course know, came down to a last-second Hail Mary that the Cougars won on, giving them their first ever Big 12 football win in that one over the Mountaineers. A game that was not great for my stomach or my stress levels, but in terms of just a game that was impactful and fun. Or I don't know about fun, but it was at least it was a big one. There were some fun moments.
It was a game.
there were some fun moments for sure. Third up, we've got Cougar softball beating the Longhorns of UT Austin to open Big 12 play. Their first ever Big 12 game was actually I should have had it in my notes, but it was a high scoring, just back and forth win over the Longhorns to give us a very unrealistic expectation of what Big 12 play was going to be like for the Cougar softball program this past year. But hey, for that one beautiful moment we beat the Longhorns to open up Big 12 play, and that was pretty flippin' cool. Next up, we got another men's basketball game. We got them beating Texas A&M in the NCAA tournament. Of course, it beat A&M twice this year, so we got to specify which time we beat the Aggies, but we're taking the tournament one. Dramatic. Another one that wasn't great for my stress levels, but a dramatic, important game for Houston as they ended up winning 100-95 in overtime to advance to a fifth straight Sweet 16 with that win over the hated Aggies. Then the next game we got up is volleyball beating Southern Cal to open the season, a win over the ranked USC Trojans. It was at the time Houston's highest ever attendance for a volleyball match in the Fertitta Center, a record that they broke a couple of times during the season. Fortunately, the level that they set for that game ended up kind of being the new normal for volleyball attendance, which was one of the really cool things about this past season, was seeing the crowd show up. But having that really big, great atmosphere, getting a big win over a ranked USC team to open the season, still one of my favorite fan moments for sure of the year. And then finally, we got another men's basketball game. We got them beating the Longhorns at home. Another one that you got to clarify which time that you're talking about, because we beat the Longhorns twice this year. But we're taking the home game in the Fertitta Center. The Coogs winning by a bunch, just blowing the Longhorns out, having that one by early second half, late first half, already being just kind of a laugher. And just another one of those, kind of like you said with the Kansas game up top, just a game that was just a party atmosphere. Just felt like a real coronation for this team, and in terms of what it means to the city, and in terms of the broader following that this men's basketball program has, and just got to ensure that you have a winning record all time as against the Longhorns in the Big 12. So very fun on that one as well. So guys, what do you make from these our 6th game of the year candidates here?
There were some moments this year that were really fun. I mean, that's like the thing I really took away from looking at this. In a year in which, we had some teams that we weren't that thrilled with. Once you take away basketball, you take away volleyball, there were still some really fun moments in this athletic season, and it reminds you why we podcast and why we watch sports and put as much effort into sports that we do. Just going back and looking at some of these games, just going like, oh yeah, I remember that. Oh yeah, I was doing this during that and all that. So just looking at the games, just a reminder of why I love sports and what makes sports so great.
I try to avoid this analysis because you could say that about a lot of things about where U of H is right now, but just imagining showing this list of, hey, these are like the best games from the U of H sports year to myself 10 years ago, when it was like, oh, we're in the AAC now. Like that's better than Conference USA was at the very least. Just imagining having 3 different conference wins over UT, a big basketball postseason win over A&M, just absolutely stomping a mud hole in Kansas in the final regular season game in a packed house in your new arena. Like, again, just imagine fucking telling that to you 10 years ago as a U of H fan. And like, not that I think we had any buyer's regret, but I don't think we anticipated that's where U of H would be 10 years from now. That's really cool. There are probably other games that don't even meet the criterion, that didn't even make the cut, like that would probably meet that criterion. Excuse me.
I mean, just look at the candidates for the first year that you guys did the Pawscars, right? Football versus Oklahoma, great game, but like, we get to play them again next year, and like we shared a conference with them, but that was like one of the biggest games we've had. Football versus Louisville, baseball at Tulane, and baseball versus Memphis.
I was gonna say it's a bad example at first because those 2 football games were intense out of 10. But yeah, the rest of your options are a couple of baseball games. Yeah, okay.
And then the next year, hoops versus San Diego State, football versus UCF. Basketball versus Cincy. USF, I'm sorry. Hoops versus Cincy. Baseball versus UConn. And then you do have softball versus UT Austin again. Like, just look at the list. It's insane. A&M, UT Austin, West Virginia. Basketball versus Kansas. It's crazy how much things have just improved, to your point, Sam. Sorry. Just wanted to just kind of reset everybody on where we are.
No, for sure. If you guys don't have any further thoughts, we will go to our next category, if I may.
Go for it. Right.
So along the same lines, we were doing the game of the year, like Dustin just got to know the team category, but this is the individual game of the year. So start with Jamari Caldwell, interior D lineman for the Cougar football team. His 2-sack performance in that close loss to UT. I'm not telegraphing my vote. I have actually, full transparency, not decided on my vote for this category just yet, but I will admit I'm the one that pounded on the table. Not that my co-host resisted at all, but I'm the one that pushed for his inclusion, because even though this was a loss, the way Jamari Caldwell took over that game when he was on the field against the best offensive line U of H faces here, it helped, I think, play the biggest part in giving U of H a puncher's chance to beat the best Longhorn team of the last 15, 16 seasons. I think merited his inclusion for individual game of the year. We also had Jamal Shed against the Longhorns, the home game, where he had an incredible stat line, really passed the eye test of doing everything if you watch the one live, but one of the crazier stat lines, even by Jamal Shed standards, of doing a lot of different things really well. 16 points, 11 boards, 6 assists, 6 steals, and 2 blocks. Not a bad day on that one for Mr. Shed. We also have Donovan Smith from the Cougar football team's win over West Virginia. He was responsible for 5 total touchdowns, and I always like to, when I talk about this game, clarify this wasn't the most even 2023 season for Donovan Smith, but he was truly excellent in this game. Like, I don't, obviously the Hail Mary at the end takes up a lot of the oxygen, rightfully so. It was the biggest moment. It's the one moment in this game that'll be probably remembered for many years afterwards, but he also had a fantastic game leading up to that, and I think very much merited his inclusion to individual game of the year. Also for Cougar soccer, Ariana Jimison, who had 2 late goals to tie against TCU. I would say far and away the best result the Cougar soccer team got this season. One of the better Big 12 results the Cougs got really across all sports, as the TCU Horned Frogs are a perennial top 25, if not top 10 some years, women's soccer program. We also, I alluded to this one a bit earlier, but Sean Maswinyani winning 3 different titles, the 100 and 200 meter dashes, and was part of the 4x1 relay at this year's Big 12 Outdoor Championships. We have from Cougar men's basketball, Emmanuel Sharp's 30 points in that NCAA win over A&M. Easy to forget for all the high drama and being deliriously angry at the referees, like I was certainly for the last 30, 40 minutes that game happened. That Emmanuel Sharp put in the performance of his life to even give the Cougars a chance to win that very difficult game. We also have Kenneth Sowers, volleyball, 25 kill, 8 dig performance, what I believe is the Cougars' home finale, win over a very good Kansas State squad. And rounding it out, last but not least, Justin Murray, baseball super senior, with a fantastic 4 for 6, 2 home run, 5 RBI performance in a Cougar baseball road win at Kansas. Dustin, start with you here. What are your first thoughts looking at the individual of the year, game of the year list? I could say
Layla Blair was on there as well for her 33 points.
That's right.
33 points and a win over
TCU. Yes.
So and again, no, this is the not to just repeat everything we just said about game of the year for team, but I think this is the most, or at least tied for the most candidates we've ever had in this category. And it was one of those ones where this is one of the harder ones as you're trying to come up with candidates, right? Team of the year, pretty easy. Like men's athlete of the year, you kind of know who the good men's athletes were. You kind of forget some of the individual single game performances. And then I was just going back and kind of like searching for them, and I just could not stop finding these just like ridiculous single game performances, often in big important games. So this is one that I think is going to be one of the categories I'm going to be spending more time trying to suss out exactly which one gets my vote in this one.
Yeah, I mean, you start out and you just look at the list and you're like, oh, Donovan Smith, 5 touchdowns. That's really impressive. And then you're like, wait, we have a guy who won 3 titles at Big 12. Okay, hold on. Wait, 4 for 6 with 2 homers? 30 points in an NCAA tournament game? Like, you're just going, okay, hold on. This one is better than this one. This one's better. Like, you just keep going through the list and you're just like, well, hold on. Is that one actually better than 30 points in an NCAA tournament game? 4 for 6 is ridiculously impressive with 2 home runs. And so it's just kind of one of those things where you're just like, what the heck is going on here? So it's to your point, you're just like, oh, yeah, no, that's a pretty good performance. That's a good performance. Wait a minute. And so, yeah, I think this one's going to be the one that I probably sit with the longest.
Yeah, there are always multiple right answers to these kinds of questions, but I think we were spoiled for a volume of good choices here.
All right, so let's talk team of the year. So we talked about game of the year, player of the year. Let's talk team of the year. We are going to start with the 3-time defending champions, and they are back to win their 4th title in a row. In case you forgot about the men's basketball team and what they did, if you listen to this, it's hard to imagine that you don't remember that the team spent 3 weeks at number 1, beat A&M and Texas multiple times, won the Big 12 regular season crown in year 1 by multiple games, and the Big 12 tournament runner-up, and, just a ho-hum Sweet 16 appearance for the men's basketball team. So that's going to be your first candidate, men's hoops. Second is women's volleyball. Made the second round of the NCAAs, where they took on one of the top teams in the country and took them to 5 sets, gave them a real scare. I remember watching that game just like, hold on, we may have a shot at beating Stanford here. Solidified themselves really as a top 20 team nationally this year, and that's not something we see a lot this early on, and it just feels like Cougar volleyball really established themselves as a program this year. Next up is swimming and diving. Finished second in the Big 12 in our first year in the Big 12. Really great performances there, and qualified 3 people for NCAA championships. And then we have men's track. Finished 5th in the country, which if we had any other team finish top 5 in the country, we'd be losing our minds right now. Multiple NCAA medalist and overall Big 12 outdoor champion. A couple of small things, according to their coach, a couple of small things at NCAA championships from being national champions this year. So top 5 finish, always good to end your season with. Fellas, what you think?
Yeah, I think 4 very strong candidates there. It'll be a little interesting to see, how much diversity we get in the votes. We've done this 6 times, and only 2 different programs have ever won Team of the Year in the time that we've been here. So definitely hoping to see going forward some more ascendant programs. Because again, not saying anything about my own vote, but I have a sneaking suspicion the overall results will be that one of the teams that has already won before will win again. But looking for some more Senate programs, and just glad to have, especially as we've never had a women's program win this category, glad to see a couple of women's programs that certainly merit inclusion in this category. And, like I said, hoping to see both of them continuing to be on an upward trajectory.
Yeah, I will say, again, not to my vote in any way. Like you guys said with swimming and diving, Bobby, being like, I would tell people, UT has won their conference, whether that's the Big 12 or the Southwest Conference, something like almost 50 years in a row under Eddie Reese. So being the second place finisher, I'm not gonna say, it's the same thing as hanging a banner, because fundamentally it's not. It's fun, but being second in a much better conference than the one you came from the first year was a really big accomplishment. One that I don't know if it gets the public credit that it deserves. Cougar volleyball competing as well as they did in a really tough Big 12, I thought was very impressive. I think with a slightly more advantageous draw, I think, to the tournament, I think you could have seen that team in the second week of the tournament, like you saw the year before. So I think a lot, I suspect one of these teams is going to be the ultimate winner, but I really do think it's a great foursome to pick from.
Next up, we have Coach of the Year. Going to be 4 candidates in Coach of the Year as well. You can probably guess them if you were paying attention to the teams that were in Team of the Year. We've got Kelvin Sampson from the men's basketball program, David Rare from the volleyball program, Tanika Jameson, swimming and diving, and then Carl Lewis, first-time nominee in track and field. Actually, other than Carl Lewis, those are the same 3 nominees that we had the year before. So glad to see Coach Lewis really establishing himself this year as a head coach, and deservedly getting the nom here. And like I said, just seeing a couple of coaches like David Rare, had that volleyball team within a hair's breadth of beating one of the very best teams in the country. Tanika Jameson, like I said, continues to. I think Tanika Jameson has had her Cougar team finish as high in every single conference event as was realistically possible. Just continues to do a great job with that. And then, what can we say they haven't already said about Kelvin Sampson and the job that he continually does every year to make the men's basketball one of the very top teams in the country.
I was going to say, for 2 of those coaches, like Tanika Jameson and Carl Lewis, had incredibly tough acts to follow. Granted, Lewis has the capital of being Carl Lewis. Like he being a great U of H athlete, obviously a legendary world class Olympian, and track athlete in his own right. But Leroy Burrell, incredibly hard act to follow. Like one of the absolute very best head coaches in University of Houston history, period. Not University of Houston track, like best coaches to ever, ply their trade on Cullen Boulevard. And maybe a bit less so, but Ryan Wakamerka had won at an unprecedented level prior to his arrival at Cougar Swimming and Diving before taking the same position at Auburn, and Tanika Jameson had to follow that along with a number of the key athletes in the last year or two of Ryan Wakamerka being here, being out of collegiate eligibility, and to, like you said, Dustin, basically finish at the maximum, highest realistic place that it would be expected to in conference every single year she's been here, I think needs to be underscored here. Like, even though, again, one of these candidates is a rightful favorite and is, I think, very much earned that for what he's done with this team here. I think a great foursome of candidates here to choose from. Once again, just like it was a great foursome of teams to choose from in the last category. And getting to our next category, the graduating senior of the year. COVID eligibilities made this a bit more confusing, but these four athletes we suspect are at the end of their eligibility. Three of the four we have already talked about, starting with Jamal Shed from the Cougar men's basketball program, Sean Meswanyani from track and field, Abby Jackson from volleyball, the one athlete we did not talk about previously. Really, really incredible story. Like, guys, came here not as a recruit of the David Rare staff. Like, David Rare did bring in some recruits that had either played for him at Arkansas State or were committed to him, but Abby Jackson was very much a recruit of the last staff from I think she was the first Division I athlete in her high school's history from a tiny school in like the Puget Sound of Washington. And basically from the beginning of her freshman year up until this most recent season was the top or one of the top, I think, as the roster got a little bit better around her. All-around Cougar volleyball players, like played an offensive position, but always contributed an incredible amount on both ends. Just somebody who has really left, I think, indelible mark on the Cougar volleyball program. And as much as any team sport requires the actions of a lot of different athletes to succeed, I don't think anyone would deny that Abby Jackson just has had an incredibly positive impact in 5 seasons with the Cougar volleyball program, and also Santiago de la Fuente from Cougar men's golf. Bobby, what are your initial thoughts in this category?
Yeah, just game changers. Like, not going to, again, we keep saying this, tip my hand on anything, but just 4 athletes who are 4 of probably some of my favorite athletes to come through the University of Houston. So 4 very deserving athletes here, and it's going to be tough to pick one.
Yeah, kind of like you said, I think the thing about all 4 of these is you can really look at all 4 of them and go and you can visibly just objectively measure the impact they've had on their respective programs and the extent to which they've lifted the bar at their respective programs and caused the overall program to succeed at a higher level than it had been before. So really, really grateful to have gotten to watch all 4 of these athletes.
All right, so we're going to switch things up a little bit. We have always done newcomer of the year, but as the transfer portal has gotten more prevalent, I would say, we've decided to split newcomer of the year between freshmen as of 2023 and 2024, and then we're going to have a new category of the best transfer for 23-24. So we wanted to do that just to make sure that, somebody comes in and they dominate as a senior transfer. We want to make sure that we're giving freshmen the shine a spectacular freshman deserves. So let's go through it. Is that all right, fellas?
Let's go.
All right, we got Michaela Mountain, comes in as a freshman and just simply joins the 4x400 team and takes 3rd nationally, finishes 11th in the country in the 400, and just a great start to her Cougar career. Next up, we have Parker Jenkins. In a year of disappointment, Jenkins was a real bright spot for that football team. Started 8 games, played in all 12, averaged 4.6 yards per carry, 3 touchdowns on the season, team leader in rushing yards, Big 12 honorable mention for newcomer of the year. And then we have Maylin Kim from the women's golf team, 2nd in the team in scoring, which is just very impressive for anybody as a freshman to come in, and showed flashes of greatness on a very, very good Lady Cougar golf team. And then finally, we have JoJo Tugler, Big 12 all-freshman team, and 2nd on the Coogs with 1.1 blocks per game, and really just a key part of a very good University of Houston basketball team this year. Fellas, Thoughts on the freshmen?
Yeah, good group here. Kind of like you said, it does feel like in the age of COVID eligibility and the transfers that you don't see freshmen making an impact quite as often anymore. And I think as Houston competes at a higher level in the Big 12, that maybe is going to continue to be so. You can recruit higher level freshmen now, but it also, the bar is so much higher to have freshmen come in and compete right away. So these 4 freshmen, Mouton, Jenkins, Kim, and Tugler, all showed that that coming right into the Big 12 was not too big of a challenge for them, and all 4 of them, really competed and came out right away and positively impacted the various teams. So good group here to be choosing from, and 4 athletes with tremendously bright futures for sure.
Yeah, the fact that Parker Jenkins, I would say, is one of the 2 or 3 most visible and liked players from the Cougar football program in only one season, I think tells you a lot. With JoJo Tugler, I think the only thing I'll add is just, it's almost like you saw his impact once he was no longer available. Not that anyone didn't appreciate his contributions when he was healthy, but I think it truly became most clear when it's like, oh yeah, we don't have him for the rest of the season. I think that tells you his impact, and to do that on a team as good as last year's team, as a guy, I think he turned 18 during the season. I think speaks to what bright future he's got.
And then next up, we've got Transfer of the Year. We've got 6 nominees here. We've got Kenneth Sauer in the volleyball program, who we've mentioned before, just came in right away, became the best offensive player, maybe the best player on Cougar volleyball this year. We've got Louis Hinchcliffe from the men's track and field, as you know, the 100-meter champion at NCAA Outdoors. We've got Cameron Maddox from the Cougar soccer program, transferred in, was Houston's leading goal scorer with 7 goals this year. From Cougar football, we've got Isaiah Hamilton on a Cougar football that, especially defensively, wasn't a lot of fun. Isaiah Hamilton was the one player that I think every fan would go, that guy had a bright year, did a lot of good stuff, some really exciting plays that he made there. We've also got LJ Cryer for men's basketball, obviously coming over from Baylor, led Houston in scoring average this year. Had a fantastic season. Excited to have him back for next year. And then finally, we've got Harold Cole from the baseball team, who came in, hit well over 300, one of the bright spots on that the Cougar baseball team, and really impressive season from him as well. So yeah, definitely, guys. I know we don't, not to get too repetitive here, but you can go and say impressive transfer group across a number of sports here.
Yeah, absolutely. Just you just kind of look at the list, and there are player of the year, athlete of the year candidates in here, and it's awesome to see transfers making that much of a difference for the Cougs.
That you have 6 transfers, one of whom's a national champion. And again, I have also not full transparency. I have not decided who I'm picking for this. You have a national champion, and you're like, oh yeah, all these other people also have a good case to this as well. I think that's not a shot at the national champion. That speaks to the credentials of everyone else that Louis Hinchcliffe is competing against for this award. And last but not least, if you guys don't have any further thoughts here, we have, I think, a slightly newer category relative to the other ones. I will link you to both the Twitter thread and the Google Doc. If you go to the episode description wherever you're listening, Apple, Spotify, etc., you will have both a link to the Pawscars and the Google Doc you could vote for it. And for good measure, Dustin, shout out to you on this one, the Google Doc where you're voting for the Pawscars will also have a link to that Twitter thread where you could actually view the specific plays that I am talking about for play of the year in GIF form, though I'd imagine most, if not all, these will be quite familiar to you as a Cougar fan. If you are listening or watching, I'm going to start with the Hail Mary from Donovan Smith to Boogie Johnson with 0 on the clock to beat West Virginia. Jamal Shedd's buzzer beater to beat Oklahoma on the road. Caitlin Matthews hitting an absolutely crazy wonder goal against Tarleton in the non-conference of their season. Another Jamal Shedd appearance, very deserved. Jamal Shedd's crazy putback dunk against A&M, I think the early to mid second half of that ultimate round of 32 win over the Aggies, right before a stretch of basketball that almost killed us and thousands of other Cougar fans. And we have, of course, last but not least here, Louis Hinchcliffe's winning the 100-meter dash finals at NCAA Outdoors in Eugene for the national title. Guys, thoughts on our last category?
Yeah, it's not the most candidates we've ever had in this category, but I think you made up for not having 6 or 7 candidates by just having 5 that you go, yeah, man, it's again, I'm glad I only have to pick one. Picking one is going to be hard enough. I'm glad I don't have to like rank these, because to pick one of these and be like, that was the 5th best play would be disrespectful to any one of they're all that good.
Yeah, I think the most underrated one on this list is the Caitlin Matthews Wonder Goal. Go check it out. It's not. I don't know if it will be number 1, but it is. If you know anything about soccer, you know how ridiculous that shot was. So I'm just saying that. Just don't. You just hear like soccer and it's a goal, and you go watch it, and then just watch any other professional soccer player hit that shot, and you'll be like, oh, that doesn't happen very often. So I'm not saying how I'm voting, but that goal is ridiculously impressive and criminally underrated.
Now, underscore what Bobby said, please, if nothing else, you don't have to change who you vote. Just go watch that goal. It was, I think, an almost overlooked moment from this past athletic season. A fantastic goal.
And I'll tell you, I sent Sam a text because I was going back watching him, and I said, man, I forgot how good that shed putback dunk was. That was so good.
With his get out of your seat moment.
With his mom, just like, what just happened? Like,
I think I watched it 20 times just watching the bench, and you see JoJo try to get up and celebrate, but he's on his boot, so he like almost falls, and you're just like, no, sit down, JoJo, sit down, JoJo.
Jamal's comment afterwards too, where he's like, man, it's a good thing I made that dunk, because otherwise coach was going to be pissed at me for not like getting back on defense. I'm not supposed to be crashing the glass on offense. It was a good thing I dunked that ball.
And then if you watch it, nobody boxed him out. He didn't have an Aggie within 20 feet of him, and he was just like, go get ball.
Until he dunked on one, in which case.
Yeah.
All right, well, those are our 10 categories for the Pawscars. Our next episode will have the winners as chosen by the 3 of us, as well as by you, the fans, as well. So look forward to that next week. We do have some other stuff we wanted to talk about while we're here, though. A little bit of Cougar news. Some Cougar catching up on some stuff. We wanted to catch up on the Cougar football recruiting situation heading into next year, because that is a situation we have not gotten to talk about in over a month at this point, which is putting us wildly behind on the news. Yeah, Sam, you got something here?
I was going to say, I love that Cougar football recruiting situation means something entirely different now than it did about 10 months ago. That's all I can add.
It's a good situation. Yeah, if you heard that and you're just immediately getting flashbacks or PTSD flashbacks to having like 8 guys committed, late in the season, we're not doing that anymore is the good news. We're doing a lot better. So it was kind of funny. As of June 16, Houston had 8 commitments in its class. They have added in a little over a month since then, another 10 to get to 18 on the year for the commitments for the 2025 class. Currently, they have the 42nd ranked 2025 class in the country, which would be Houston's highest ranked since the 2016 group that included Ed Oliver and Derek King. And, it's worthwhile to point out, because anytime you see, you're ranked this in the country, that's always a combination of both how many recruits you have as well as what their ratings are. So it's very possible to game the system at various points in the recruiting cycle by just having a high number of commitments. And that is not the case with what UA. They're not spamming low-rated recruits by any stretch. They actually jump up, I believe it's 4 spots to number 38 if you just go by average recruit ranking in the country instead of by overall recruit ranking. So they are doing a great job of recruiting that we've not seen in almost a decade for this program. And, Willie Fritz's his track record is nothing but holding on to the guys he recruits and recruiting guys who are going to outperform their recruit ranking. So before we talk about the individual guys, just seeing the level he's recruiting at for 2025 right now, I think has to make you excited for the future of Cougar football.
Yeah, my biggest picture takeaway is that despite only being on the job for about 8-9 months now, is that Willie Fritz's staff is getting Big 12 caliber guys to commit to the program and has a clear and coherent vision and blueprint for where they're recruiting and what kinds of players are committing here. Bobby, jump in here.
Yeah, no, I think I've said this no less than 500 times on this podcast over the last year. I look at offer list, and you just go through the list, and you're just like, oh, big program offered, big program offered, and you're just kind of like, oh, we got some guys here, right? Our top recruit, Demetrius Dean. You look at his offer list, 4-star, but then you kind of look at the list and you go, A&M, Texas Tech, Baylor. You're like, well, okay. And then, you know, you got UCF, Tulsa. So, you know, it's kind of some guys local nearby that it seems he's interested in and have offers, maybe a little under the radar, even at a 4-star. But you just look at these offer list and you just randomly pick one, and it's high 3 stars, low 4 stars. And that's the kind of player that U of H is going to succeed with. Somebody who has an offer from, you have Zaylen Cormier, Houston, Arizona State, Arkansas State, HCU, Jackson State, Memphis, Mississippi State. You just see these offer lists and you just go, oh, these are players. Like, these are guys. And when I watched Media Day, hearing him talk about it's a car ride away, and then over the last week or so, I thought I read somewhere that he was like 300-mile radius from the campus. It's like, okay, that's 5 hours. He's going. He probably goes to the border of Oklahoma, out to New Orleans, and then just kind of works his way back in. And that's something we as Cougar fans as a whole, not the three of us necessarily, have clamored for. You got all the talent in the world here, build a fence, and let's get it done. And I've always kind of been, go where good players are. Go where all the good players are. But Fritz clearly thinks that Houston and any area within 5 hours is where the good players are, and I can't blame him for that.
Yeah, like the class right now is 14 Texas players and 4 from Louisiana. The staff has connections in Louisiana from their time at Tulane, but I think given how close Houston is to the Texas-Louisiana border, it almost feels like an extension of in-state recruiting to target Louisiana players. I'm not saying U of H should never, ever recruit anywhere else, and like you said, Bobby, Fritz said it as much at media days. If the staff's almost entire focus is on Texas high school players in Louisiana, to me that's a winning and sustainable strategy to build a Big 12 roster. There are Big 12 programs ranked ahead of you in the recruiting rankings, but you are recruiting on par with the majority of the Big 12. You're not going to be dramatically out-talented in the new Big 12, and unlike the last head coach, you can point to Willie Fritz, and I would say a big part his son Wes as well, leading a recruiting operation at Tulane that was outstanding at identifying guys who turned out to be very good college players, even had a handful of future pros mixed in there. Seeing the vision of that recruiting operation with a bit more resources and a Big 12 program to sell, that's really exciting. I mean, there's no certainties, especially when it comes to high school recruiting. Nobody knows in 3 or 4 years exactly how these guys will contribute to U of H's success in the Big 12. But I can only speak for myself in saying, and I think you guys are generally on board with me in this, I'm seeing exactly what I wanted to see in the early stages of Fritz's first full class here, after, quite frankly, a 2024 transition class that was better than it had any business being after Holgerson left with minimal high school commitments and openly quitting on 2024 recruiting in the public domain in his last few weeks on the job. So, yeah, big picture feeling good.
Yeah, also feeling good from seeing the work that he's doing in with the line play here. Demetrius Dean, who Bobby mentioned, being an offensive lineman. Yeah, we know how hard it is to build an offensive line, and it's really hard to do that in the portal. That's one of those positions that, you know, because chemistry and cohesion is so important, it's so important to get guys in, to recruit guys that can play for you, and then to keep them around. So to get a guy like Dean in there with, you know, what A&M brought into multiple unofficial visits in addition to offering him, in addition to his crazy offer list, really impressive. Joins, and then Houston's other, you know, 4-star recruit currently committed in the class in the 247 composite, Travis Buake from Arlington, the defensive lineman. So you got your top 2 recruits there. Is one guy on each side of the line like that. And then, you know, really excited also about a pair of cornerbacks that have committed in the last month or so in Jacob Bradford from Baton Rouge and Kyle Johnson from Bunkie, Louisiana, 2 of the 4 Louisiana guys that have come in. Both of those guys, high 3, borderline 4 stars. Bradford, you know, Texas Tech brought him in for an official visit and offered him offers from Arizona State, Georgia Tech, and others. Kyle Johnson was expected to commit to Mississippi State over Baylor, Ole Miss, and others, but then chose Houston at the last second. Anytime you're going in and swiping guys that are expected to be headed off to the SEC, that's probably a good thing that I'm not mad about. And the cornerback's another position where, you know, it's kind of one of those long-term builds. It's not a position where you can really have a guy come in very often and play a bunch right away as a freshman. I think the line and cornerback may be 2 of the most difficult positions to play right away. So seeing the staff getting a lot of guys at those positions, those kind of seeds for the future. And then, like I said, all you want to see now is just Willie Fritz continue to do what Willie Fritz has always done, which is, keep the guys on campus and develop them and have them end up looking like they were, underrated as recruits out of high school.
Glad you mentioned Johnson and Bradford specifically, Dustin. Both guys who are in the top 12 in the state of Louisiana in their class. Like, you might be just like a tiny bit below the cut of maybe like LSU and the high-end SEC programs, but I'm perfectly fine like getting guys in that like next tier of Louisiana talent, especially just historically. U of H has done so well. The hit rate of the last 10, 15 years of us recruiting in Louisiana, it's never been a huge volume thing, but you can find sprinkled over multiple eras key guys that have contributed to this program from just across the border there. Like, really excited about those two. I wanted to also mention another lineman who I'm excited about. Maybe it doesn't have the as high rating as Buhake and Demetrius Dean, but Carmelo Brooks, a local kid that U of H picked up from Katy Paytow. I think that's the name of the high school. Paytow. I was gonna say I am too. That high school like didn't exist for like 10 years after I graduated. It was just like Taylor and Katy High.
I was gonna say, if I wasn't engaged to a teacher in the Katy ISD schools, I would have no idea on that one. But I
was banking on you. I was banking on you. Paytow.
Wait, what?
From Paytow High School. And Katy, again, will reiterate, apologize for my mispronunciation because I am ancient and that long predates my days as a Houston high schooler. High 3-star guy, listed 6'3", 275, pretty impressive measurables for a high school defensive lineman. Just feels like a guy who can get to the collegiate level, put on some muscle, and ultimately be a multi-year starter in a three-man front like it looks like the Cougar defense will be running for the foreseeable future. Duke and Boise State seem to be the other two finalists, but also had offers from Cal, Mizzou, Pitt, the Longhorns, Tulane, Memphis, UTSA. Really, really, really good offer list, like you said, Bobby. And to get that kind of talent in the trenches where I think the talent deficit, if you had one going into the Big 12, I think is most exposed on both sides of the ball. I think Brooks and the guys you mentioned previously, I think are the kinds of recruits you need to get to bridge that deficit. And so nice to see him added to the class as well, even if he's just maybe slightly below the 2 4-stars that you mentioned.
I say Houston doing work on the defensive line. 4 defensive linemen in this class already. Buhake, you mentioned Brooks, and then DK Mays from Baton Rouge and Sheldon Rice from Fulshire as well. Now, 2 guys who I think, like Brooks, they're kind of in that similarly rated, mid to high 3-star ranking. But you look at the offer list and you go, okay, there's some big time programs. There's some good programs that are interested in these guys. So excited to see what they all are able to do on the defensive line in years to come.
Yeah, and like I know it's a highlight video, so it's always the best of the best. But DK Mays' highlight video on some websites, it's kind of fun to watch. He just doesn't seem like he gives up, and he gets to the ball pretty quick. So just a fun one if you got a couple of minutes to kill. Just kind of a fun one. It does kind of appear like he is a grown man amongst children. I think he coming in at 6'4", 250, he's got a little bit of an advantage over a lot of high school kids, but you can definitely see some talent there.
Just to remind everyone too, the Cougars got I think a really good. I think losing Brian early wasn't something we wanted to see happen, but man, Oscar Giles is a hell of a hire at defensive line. A guy who did well coaching the D-line in 2015 and 2016 here previously as well. So if you get those guys to work with Oscar Giles long term, I feel like some really good stuff's going to happen there.
Absolutely. All right, guys, the last on our way out with the Olympics coming up. You guys want to talk some Cougs in the Olympics?
Ooh, let's do it.
All right. So from what I've seen, the University of Houston will have 8 alumni competing in Paris in different events. Fully half of them will be in track and field, where the Cougs will have a couple of men's athletes who just competed this year. Louis Hinchliff from who, of course, won the 100-meter NCAA title. He'll be competing for Great Britain. Sean Mafangani will be competing for South Africa in the sprinting events as well. Actually, all four track athletes are going to be sprinters. I mentioned the 2 men, and then a couple of women sprinters who have a year or more out of the program, but also Coug alumni. Tristan Evelyn will be competing for Barbados, and then Cecilia Tamayo Garza will be competing for Mexico as well. So University of Houston track and field, known for its sprinting, putting fully 4 sprinters into the Olympics. The swimming and diving program, excitingly, 2 athletes that are on the roster coming back next year, as far as I know. Rising sophomore Elizabeth Jimenez, backstroker, will be representing the Dominican Republic in Paris. And then Alondra Ortiz, rising junior, will be competing for Costa Rica. And then a couple that you maybe didn't expect to hear us mention, but I'm excited to be talking about. Jeffrey Lewis will be competing in a new Olympic event, which was not in the Olympics prior to this year. That is breaking or breakdancing will be a new Olympic event. Jeffrey Lewis, 29-year-old, graduate of Westside and U of H, will be part of that. And it looks like is one of the favorites, I believe, in 2022, had like a second place in a world championship and some kind of first place in a world championship. So known as B-Boy Jeffro within the breaking community, Jeffrey Lewis representing the University of Houston in breaking. And then finally in the Paralympic Games, which will be going on at the same time in Paris, Jasmine Omley Ryan, U of H alumnus, who has twice previously competed in the Paralympic Games in the shooting events, will be doing so again this year, looking for her first ever medal there. So excited to see all 8 of these Cougar, I don't want to say alumni because some of them are still competing for the University of Houston. But if you want to cheer for some Cougs in the Olympics and the Paralympics, no shortage of candidates there.
2 things really quick. Really cool. Not that it's any more or less cool than the other athletes, but it always felt like Cecilia Tamayo Garza was a standout athlete. We talked about it here a fair amount, but it always seemed like she would get to like outdoors and just like by the tiniest, most absurd margin, just barely not like make the finals. So really cool to see her get to represent Mexico in the Olympics. High level Cougar athlete, and I was just like, oh yeah, I remember her. She kicked ass. Good job. She got some something break her way, and she was get to the Olympics. And this is I'm being genuine. This is the first time that I've heard that breakdance. It's cool. I have no strong negative opinion, but like I did not know breakdancing was. I knew skateboarding made the cut recently, and I don't watch a ton of Olympics, but I'll watch like a smattering here and there. I set my DVR to record like 3 to 5 different sports on it, but like did not know breakdancing was an Olympic sport until like 2 or 3 minutes ago. So thank you for that, Dustin.
Absolutely. Let's go B-Boy Jeffro. I'm a huge lifelong B-Boy Jeffro fan. I'm genuinely going to go to the like, because again, I'm not going to give my my choice provider of choice free advertising here, but they have the ability to go and like, oh, you want to like record any instance of this Olympic sport? Yeah. And I'm going to see if they have Olympic breakdance and make sure that's among my 5 or 6 recorded sports. That's cool shit.
Yeah, no, it's always cool to see the any Cougars competing. As a Brit, I will be really cheering for Hinchcliffe.
Ooh, USA, no. USA.
No, in all seriousness, I am not a Brit. I was born in England, but I am not a Brit. I was born an American citizen, and this is it does hurt a little bit, when you're watching the Olympics and you want to cheer for the Cougars, but you're also like, but also America. Like there's a little bit of a tug. So it's always cool though to see it. One thing I really enjoy is, they have the uniforms, but occasionally you'll see and they'll mention U of H, and that's always really exciting to hear U of H mentioned on a worldwide feed kind of deal. So
I say, if you want to cheer for U of H and the U.S., all the more reason to get into to breaking this year in the Olympics and cheer for our new favorite Cougar athlete, B-Boy Jeffro.
B-Boy Jeffro. We're the B-Boy Jeffro podcast.
So I'm gonna give a quick shout out, just Houston in general. One of my friends coaches wheelchair basketball, and he has an athlete from Houston who made the Paralympic team in wheelchair basketball. So if you want to cheer for a Houstonian and you see it, it's a cool opportunity. It'll happen after the Olympics in Paris. It follows the Olympics and the Paralympics too. And just shout out to Houston. I know we all have lived there for a long time and we all love that place. So just kind of a cool thing I just wanted to drop in real quick.
And say shout out Houston. If you want to have some fun, Google like Houstonians in the Olympics and you'll read multiple extremely lengthy articles that I combed through just looking for the ones that actually also went to the University of Houston, because if we were trying to do it every Houstonian, it would be a much longer episode that we don't have time for. So shout out to H-Town for bringing the goods when it comes to producing athletes, as it always does. And I think that's a good note to end on. So on our way out, big Scott and Holman podcast. Thank you from all 3 of us to our Patreon supporters for your continued support of the work that we're doing here every week. We would love for you, if you enjoy this podcast on a regular basis and you feel like you can afford $5 a month, we'd love for you to go to patreon.com/ SH Podcast, where you can sign up and earn yourself some good karma from doing that. Oh, excuse me. If you want to reach out and say hi, you can email us, shpodcast@gmail.com. You can tweet at us at shpodcast. You can, I guess, blue sky us at podcast.bsky.social. So that, I think,
I can't stop you.
I guess you can. I won't prevent you. I think I still get notifications. Like, genuinely, if you want just an absolute, basically text message, this host of the podcast, blue sky us. So I think that's it. I got a little lost there. But go B-Boy Jeffro, and as always,
go Coogs.
All right. Go Coogs. Let's go.